History is full of tough guys, scary dudes who ruled with an iron fist. Genghis Khan, Vlad the Impaler, you know the type. But sometimes the most terrifying person in the room wasn't a guy at all. Today, we're looking at some of history's most ruthless female rulers. Women who made grown men tremble and who wrote their laws in blood. And let me tell you, they were terrifyingly good at it. First up, let's go to 7th century China, a place of poetry, philosophy, and a former concubine who would stop at absolutely nothing to become empress. Meet Wu Zetian. Wu started her career in Emperor Taizong's court as a junior concubine, which was basically a glorified intern. When the emperor died, she and all the other childless concubines were supposed to be shipped off to a Buddhist monastery for the rest of their lives. A pretty boring fate, right? But Wu had a plan. She had already started a secret affair with the crown prince, Li Ji. So when he became the new Emperor Gaozong, he brought her back to the palace. Scandalous. Back in court, Wu was smart, and she knew how to play the game. The current Empress Wang and a high-ranking consort were locked in a bitter rivalry. Wu played both sides, gained the emperor's favor, and then she made her move. In 654, Wu gave birth to a daughter. One day, Empress Wang visited the baby. Shortly after she left, the baby was found dead, strangled. Wu accused the Empress of murder, and the emperor totally fell for it. Now, did Empress Wang actually do it? Historians today think it's way more likely that Wu Zetian killed her own child just to frame her rival, which is next-level ruthless. With the Empress out of the way, Wu Zetian took her spot, and once she was Empress, she didn't stop. She got rid of anyone she saw as a threat. Political rivals, exiled or executed. Her own sons, who were in line to be emperor. One was exiled, another was forced to abdicate. She even forced one to commit suicide. She was like a character in a soap opera, except with a much higher body count. Eventually, the emperor had a stroke, and Wu started ruling behind the scenes, and when he finally died, she just kept ruling. She established her own dynasty, the Zhou dynasty, and became the one and only female emperor in over 4,000 years of Chinese history. To keep her power, she created a terrifying secret police force. People would just disappear. She encouraged citizens to spy on each other. It was a paranoid police state. And it worked. Nobody dared to challenge her. But here's the crazy part. Despite the trail of bodies, she was actually a really good emperor. She promoted talented people, expanded the empire, reformed the government, and was a patron of arts and religion. China was powerful and prosperous under her rule. So, Wu Zetian, a brutal, murdering tyrant, or a brilliant and effective leader? The answer is yes. Transition sound effect. Next up, we're heading to 17th century Hungary to meet a countess whose name would become synonymous with terror. Elizabeth Báthory, also known as the Blood Countess. Elizabeth was a noblewoman, super rich, super powerful, and married to a famous war hero who was almost never home. This left Elizabeth in charge of huge castles and estates, with a lot of time on her hands, and her hobbies, allegedly, were creative and extremely messy. According to the stories, for years, Elizabeth and a few of her servants lured young peasant girls to her castle with promises of work. Once they were there, the horror began. The accusations are insane. We're talking beatings, starvation, burning, and biting off chunks of flesh. Some were supposedly covered in honey and left out for ants. It was like a medieval horror movie. Except it was real. Maybe. The most famous legend, of course, is that she bathed in the blood of her virgin victims to stay young and beautiful. This is probably an exaggeration, but it made for a great story, right? For a long time, no one did anything. The victims were just poor peasant girls. Who cared? But then, Elizabeth supposedly started killing girls from noble families. And that was a big mistake. You can murder all the peasants you want, but the second you touch the upper class, that's a paddling. Her cousin, a powerful figure in Hungary, finally investigated. They raided her castle and supposedly found it littered with bodies and dying girls. The trial was a sensation. Over 300 witnesses testified against her. Her servants confessed under torture and were executed in some truly gruesome ways. But Elizabeth, being a noble woman, couldn't just be executed. That would be unladylike. So instead, they came up with a unique punishment. They walled her up in a set of rooms in her own castle, leaving only a small slot for food and water. She stayed there for 4 years until she died. But here's the twist. Some historians think the whole thing might have been a setup. Elizabeth was a powerful widow who controlled vast amounts of land and money. Her cousin, who led the investigation, owed her a ton of money. And many of the accusations were pretty outlandish. So was she a sadistic serial killer who slaughtered 650 girls? Or a powerful woman taken down by a political conspiracy? We may never know for sure, but her legend is one of the most terrifying in history. Transition sound effect. Finally, let's travel to 19th century Madagascar to meet a queen who was so notoriously cruel, she earned the nickname the Mad Queen of Madagascar. Meet Ranavalona I. Ranavalona was never supposed to be queen, but after the king died, mysteriously of course, she launched a preemptive strike. She executed every single one of her rivals. Her husband's mother, his nephew, his cousin, anyone with a claim to the throne, gone. With the competition removed, she took power and immediately reversed all the previous king's policies. He had been friendly with Europe, encouraging trade and missionaries. Ranavalona said, "No thanks." She kicked out the foreigners, banned Christianity, and sealed Madagascar off from the world. And for the Malagasy people who had converted to Christianity, things were about to get very, very bad. They were hunted down, tortured, and brutally executed. But Ranavalona's most infamous method of control was the tangena ordeal. If you were accused of a crime, any crime, you had to go through a trial by poison. You were forced to swallow 3 pieces of chicken skin, followed by a poison from the tangena nut. Then you had to drink a ton of water. If you vomited up all 3 pieces of chicken skin, you were innocent. Hooray! If you didn't, or if you just died from the poison, you were guilty. The system was basically 50-50, unless you were rich and could bribe the person administering the poison to give you a weaker dose. It was justice by projectile vomiting. Ranavalona also used forced labor on a massive scale for her public works projects. Tens of thousands of people died from starvation and exhaustion building her palaces and fortifications. Her military campaigns were equally brutal. Her motto was basically, "Why take prisoners when you can just kill everyone?" By the time she died after a 33-year reign, she had reduced the population of her own kingdom by nearly half. We're talking millions of deaths, all to maintain her absolute power and her vision of an isolated Madagascar. She makes the other rulers on this list look like, well, not nice people, but definitely not as bad. So there you have it. Zetian, Elizabeth Báthory, and Ranavalona I. 3 women who clawed their way to the top and weren't afraid to spill a little blood to stay there. Or in Elizabeth's case, a lot of blood. It just goes to show you, when it comes to ruthless, brutal power, gender is no barrier at all.